Hi, my name is Veronica Timpe-Laughlin.
And I'm Tanya Sidorenko.
And I'm Phoebe Dario.
Welcome to our talk, Using Interactive Spoken Dialogue Systems for Language Learning and Instruction. What do teachers think? All right, let's get started. Speaking skills are a key component of the curriculum in second and foreign language teaching in order to enable learners to interact in the target language. However, for language learners, and especially those that learn the additional language as a foreign language, it can be quite challenging to find opportunities to practice their speaking. Now, the classroom tends to provide only limited amount of time for individual speaking practice, and it can be quite difficult to find an interlocutor outside of the classroom. Recent developments in speech recognition and spoken dialogue technology have led to the creation of interactive systems that can provide a potential solution here. At a very basic level, spoken dialogue systems allow users to interact with a computer via spoken language. Very prominent examples of spoken dialogue systems are Siri in iPhones, or customer support systems when you have to call a hotline and you talk to a computer voice. These types of spoken dialogue systems have three potential advantages when it comes to practicing speaking. First, they would allow a learner to practice speaking anytime, anywhere, even when a human interlocutor or instructor is not present. Second, they may provide a safe environment for practice when a learner is a little nervous talking to a human being, for instance. So in that case, they may help to minimize anxiety. And third, these types of spoken dialogue systems can be used to operationalize situations from the real world and thus could approximate authentic real-life conversations. Let's take a look at how spoken dialogue systems actually work. Here's an example of a task we developed for our study. As a learner, you are about to call your boss, Lisa Green, and your tasks are to A, get her to agree to have a meeting with you, and B, ask Lisa to review your presentation slides before the meeting. So essentially, you're asked to make two requests. Your schedule is free for the rest of the week, so any time proposed by Lisa will work for you. The learner sees this on the computer and then when ready, hits the call your boss button and the call starts. And here is an example of a learner interacting with this task.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, how's it going? What can I do for you?
Well, I want if you can schedule me a meeting on the next week.
Yeah, sure. I'm available on Friday at 12. Does that work for you?
Yes. Any day of my week open. Any day of my week is open. So Friday would be good for me. Good for me.
Was there anything else you needed?
Okay. Please review my slides, the presentation slides I sent you. Can you please?
Sure, no problem. Send them over.
Okay, I'm going to send them.
Okay, see you Friday then.
Let's take a look behind the scenes of the SDS system that you just saw in action, HALEF. HALEF is an open source, standards compliant, cloud-based modular spoken dialogue system architecture that has been used to develop a variety of interactive educational applications. Since it is open source, you can access it and use it via the URL in the green box below. So when using it, the user or language learner calls the system via phone, computer, or tablet. You just need a strong internet connection. Then the user provides a spoken response that is first converted to text via an automatic speech recognition system. The output of the speech recognizer is then processed by a language understanding component that parses the text to assign it to a certain semantic category from a list of predefined semantic categories that are relevant for the current dialogue state. For example, the system listens for key terms such as meeting or meet in order to determine whether the first request was made. Based on this automatically detected semantic category, the dialogue manager then determines the next action that the SDS system should take. In other words, it picks the response that will be given to the user. Then, during the final step of speech generation, the language generation component produces the text that will be contained in the next system prompt, and the text-to-speech synthesizer converts this text to an audio response that is played back to the user. And then for the next turn, the cycle repeats. Now, the way this SDS task was developed was by means of first sketching out a very prototypical dialogue between Lisa Green and what we would assume the user would say in return to her prompts. As you can see, we expected the two requests to be made in turn 2 and turn 4, and the original version of this SDS task was operationalized in a very static way. So there was no variability. Regardless of what the user would answer, the system would follow up with the next prompt. Obviously, as you may guess, life doesn't always pan out as static, and there was a lot of variability in how users handled this dialogue. So based on a lot of iterations, we built in branching. So now, regardless of when users made the request, the system would be flexible enough to respond with an appropriate turn. So from this very static, unbranched version, it now looks very dynamic in the branched version of this task. Now, overall, these are the steps that we took in developing these SDS tasks. So we conceptualize the dialogue, we program the task in the SDS, then we deploy the language-based version first and make changes and refinements based on several iterations of data collection. So it's a data-driven development process, but the important thing is that this process should actually also involve what teachers think. And in the past, that has not been done, at least to our knowledge, as much as it should be. So this study, we set out to see what do teachers actually think about the tasks. Now here are the 4 tasks that we used in the study. The first one I already introduced you to. The next task is a task where you have to refute a phone bill and you need to call the phone company. So you have been charged for some international calls that you are not supposed to be charged for, and you need to set that straight. So you have the information provided on the screen, and again, you call the phone company when you're ready. The next task is a spin off a very prominent game called the guessing game here. So you have to play a game with the computer, finding out which person the computer actually is. So anytime before you start, the computer randomly picks one of these characters, and you have to find out by asking yes/no questions which character the computer picked. And finally, the last task is for you as a user to get a beverage and a food item for your friend. So you said you would bring your friend John a snack and something to drink, and you have to make the order, place the order at the local coffee shop by giving the barista a call. And in this study, we wanted to find out from teachers, what do they actually think about the SDS-based tasks, these 4 ones in particular, and how would they use and implement them in their ESL instruction?
So in terms of the methodology of our study, we had the participants who were 16 ESL teachers, all female, ranging in age from 31 to 60 years old, with English being their L1, except for one teacher. They also had a variety of teaching experiences, ranging from 5 to more than 15 years. This included a variety of proficiency levels that they taught, as well as different language skills. Our procedures were the following. Teachers first took an online survey that included background and teaching experience questions. They then took 4 SDS tasks, and each task was followed by a short post-survey. After that, they took a post-engagement survey that asked more general questions about their experiences with the tasks. And finally, 7 teachers chose to participate in interviews. They did focus group interviews, but 1 teacher did an individual interview due to scheduling constraints. The survey and interview questions focused on general experiences during task engagement, teachers' opinions about each task, their suggestions for improving the tasks, as well as potential implementations and uses in ESL instruction. We conducted both quantitative and qualitative analyses. And for quantitative analyses, we looked at frequency counts, while for qualitative analyses, we looked at major themes. And when we calculated intercoder agreement across all codes, it was 87%. So now I will share our findings and the discussion of them. In general, teachers felt that the bite-sized format of these relatively short and specific tasks is fun, motivating, and engaging. They liked the idea that learners could potentially practice their speaking in various contexts in a low-stakes situation. They could see them as being a fun way to engage and make low-level learners excited about speaking English, helping to boost their confidence. And also, they thought that the practical real-life interactions were quite useful. And each of these quotes represents the similar sentiments that other teachers expressed. So now when we look at the 4 tasks that teachers completed and the differences in their opinions on each of the tasks, we can see that the request boss task was the most popular perhaps, or went the most smoothly, followed by the coffee shop task, the billing dispute task, and then the guessing game task. I will now talk about each specific task in more details and share the different positive aspects of each task and the concerns that teachers had with them. So for the guessing game task, the main positives were the gamified features, where one teacher said, the premise is great, everyone loves a guessing game. Teachers also felt that this task is good for beginners. It is simple and would be easy to understand for my low-level students. The concerns were primarily lack of authenticity of the task, where one teacher said, it's not an authentic speaking activity that would be enacted in the real world, but it is good for practicing grammar. And also another issue was the technical functionality of the automated speech recognition, where one teacher said the system did not understand me at first. As for the billing dispute task, the main positive was the authenticity of both the scenario and the responses. And teachers had the concerns of technical challenges, just as in the previous task, where one person said, at one point, I tried to explain why I was calling, and the woman interrupted me, which felt kind of frustrating. Some teachers also disliked this scenario. As one person said, it is as frustrating as this activity is in real life. However, it is useful for life. We in particular noted that some teachers, even though disliking the activity, nevertheless felt that it is useful to practice or it is authentic, and we'll come back to this point a little bit later on in this presentation. With regard to the coffee shop task, The positives were, again, authenticity of scenarios and responses, just as for the billing dispute task. The concerns were the image of the menu, which to one person felt limited and which made the task less authentic, as well as lack of task complexity, where some teachers felt it was too basic. Finally, with regard to the request boss task, the positives were perceived authenticity. The picture of Lisa made me feel like I was actually talking with a real person, said one teacher. The feel of the open-ended conversation was another prominent positive aspect. As one teacher said, the task gave me the chance to use longer utterances than the other tasks, given that it was a bit more open-ended. And the functionality of technology was another positive. This task worked the best of all of them, is the way that one teacher summarized this. The concerns were limited task complexity, where this task seemed a little too easy or simple. So now to sum up what we found with regard to teacher perceptions is that SDS tasks are motivating, fun, and provide a safe environment for L2 speaking practice. And this also echoes researchers like McGrath and Mishan and Timis, who talk about very similar evaluation categories of the different tasks that teachers examine. Teachers highly valued authenticity. It was the most prominent aspect of the tasks that they talked about. They also valued extended dialogues and negotiation of meaning when that was present in certain tasks. And they valued the balance between technologically smooth and authentic tasks. For example, they talked about the accent of the customer service representative in the billing dispute task, and how when the accent is too smooth, it seems to make the task less authentic, because typically they feel that those tasks are more challenging to complete even in real life. With regard to suggestions for task improvements, the teachers suggested to increase task complexity, adding more items to the menu, for example, minimize technical issues such as errors with speech recognition, which were present in some of the tasks to some degree, or more in some of the tasks than in others. And to increase authenticity, such as customer service agents' accent. When it was too clear, it could be changed to something more authentic. Finally, they suggested that we increase negotiation of meaning. For example, we can make it harder to find a time to meet with the boss. And to do so, we can add a calendar where the participants can converse and find a common time using a calendar. With regard to potential implementation in ESL instruction, there were two aspects that teachers talked about. One of them was out-of-class supplementary speaking practice, and they really emphasized the out-of-class aspect of it because they felt there isn't enough time in class to do so, as well as the recording aspect. Recording all of the students in class at the same time is too challenging. So when SDS tasks are assigned as homework, they suggested that they be scaffolded via pre-tasks in class. They also talked about awareness raising and extension activities in class that can follow SDS tasks. For example, one teacher said students can create their own scripts and use role plays to build on speaking tasks. So this leads us to think that such supplementary materials can significantly shape what happens in the ESL classroom, and therefore such research is quite important to conduct. The second aspect that teachers talked about with regard to implementation in the classroom was assessment. They saw that these tasks can be used as self or peer assessment. They can be used as a speaking diagnostic, as well as a speaking evaluation, which could be conducted by a teacher using a rubric, or it could also be automatized. So this indicates an important role of automatized feedback for out-of-class use, but it needs to be developed as it was not part of the tasks that we used.
These findings, such as the use of the SDS tasks for supplementary speaking practice and speaking assessment, highlight the need for including the pedagogical perspective when developing instructional technology. When we research what teachers think and how they would implement tasks like these into their classrooms, we learn specifics about refining the technology, and we are better able to match the technology to the goals of those who will use it. We know also that teachers are usually the ones making instructional decisions, more so than, say, textbook authors or administrators, and that their choice to use a specific technology is often based on their individual belief system. However, our study did find similarities in the criteria that this group of teachers used to evaluate these SDS-based tasks. As Tanya mentioned, they thought it was important that the tasks were authentic, that they were relevant to students, that there was enough complexity to trigger extended negotiation, that there was a lack of technological issues, and that the tasks could motivate and engage students. Note that these criteria align with many current SLA theories, like the interaction approach in terms of negotiation and task-based language teaching. We're really excited about the potential of future research to expand on our study. We want to include the student perspective and the perspective of teachers from other contexts. We also know that studying how teachers actually implement the SDS-based tasks into their classrooms, as opposed to what they say they will do, will provide useful information about their effectiveness for instruction. This therefore becomes part of the iterative process that Veronica mentioned at the beginning. Once the tasks are designed and deployed, the process begins of gathering data on the task's potential or actual use, and then making changes and refinements based on that data. For example, in our study, a refinement will be the implementation of automatized feedback to make these tasks more effective for assessing speaking. And further studies can contribute to this refinement and to the effectiveness of the tasks by including the student perspective and the result of data from use in the classroom. Our study was impactful for us, and we want to reiterate the call of Mishan and Timus to involve teachers more in the design of tasks and learning materials.